The town of Plattsburgh is hoping to harness the power of the sun with 4 new solar farms. Town Supervisor Michael Cashman says unlike many other communities, the town approved rules several years ago on where solar installations can be located. A 25-acre solar farm has gone up just off Route 22, not far from the Clinton County Jail, and 3 others have been approved and are in the process of getting built. And Plattsburgh Town Supervisor Michael Cashman is here. It's good to see you again. Welcome.
Good to see you, Tom.
The town now has 4 solar farms. 1 is up, 1's in the process of going up, and a couple more in the planning stage on the drawing board.
That's correct.
More on the horizon?
I would anticipate that Plattsburgh will continue to be seen as a place for companies wanting to bring solar farms into the region. Back in about 2018-19, we adopted a local solar law that very specifically lays out how companies can, petition the town to basically bring these projects in. And it also has a community benefit element to it.
What is it about the town that solar developers would like?
There's 2 things that we've learned. One is there's easy connection to the transmission lines, the master transmission lines, and also a lot of open sky. So unobstruction to a lot of time to bring in those sun rays.
And you talk about the sites, all on town land?
So they're not on town land, they're actually on private property.
They are on private property.
They are on private property. A lot of them are former farms or farms that we haven't seen much agricultural activity on for a while. So it's an opportunity for those landowners to repurpose their land for 20, 30 years, depending on the contract, but also provide green energy into the network.
And for the landowners, do they get a fair amount of money for leasing the land?
Yeah, I certainly think that from my perspective, they're getting a benefit from it, right? I mean, to work with an outside company, there definitely is a pay benefit to them. Again, it's usually within a 20 to 30 year contract for them. They negotiate that directly. We're not involved in that part. What we're looking at is the site plan, making sure that it meets our expectations. As I noted before, we have a public benefit portion of it. It means that we're actually receiving some funds that then go into green activities and support the sustainability of the town of Plattsburgh. You know, back in 2018, we actually became the first community identified as a clean energy community by NYSERDA, and you've seen a lot of different projects populate through that time. But by using these funds, we're able to make a more sustainable community by investing some of those funds in sidewalks, for example. And you might think, why sidewalks? It's because we want people to get out and to have a more multimodal experience, particularly the walkability. So from Treadwell's Mills all the way down connecting to the city of Plattsburgh, we're installing sidewalks, and that's actually a sustainability feature of our smart growth community.
So to get approval from the town, the developers have to pay into the town?
They do. Yep, they do. And it's all laid out in our local law, and that has not prevented any of these projects from moving forward. In fact, what they appreciate about it is that the town has really laid out a very streamlined level of expectations that they can come in and see what's going on. And each one of these projects so far has been about between 25 to 30 acres.
And is there any limit on the size of these
projects? There are some limitations as you move forward with that. What I really want to do is to tell people is to contact us, and we'll work through the finer details. But the larger the projects grow, the state then also gets involved in some of those mechanics as well.
And does the town limit the number of solar farms you're going to allow?
We're not really looking at limiting the number of solar farms per se. What we're really looking to do is to make sure that it meets the expectations of the local law. For example, we don't want a solar farm on, in the heart of the Tom Miller Road, because that's our town center. Mm-hmm. That's where our commercial district is. It's also where we're going to see future housing in addition to Northwoods. So we want to make sure that we're protecting those lands, that we're not tying up land for 20 or 30 years with solar and limiting our ability to bring in some other development.
And part of the debate over solar is also the view, the landscape.
is that part of it for the town, is that you really don't want these large solar farms in very visible areas of the town.
Yeah, it's a portion of it, but it's much smaller than other pieces. In fact, one of the solar farms is off of 22, and it kind of goes down into like a ditch area. So as you're driving by it, it's kind of hard to see. Some of these projects...
Is that by design, though? Is to try to hide it?
It wasn't even by design. It was just where the property was. So it really was perfect, because once you got past that hump, it was nice and flat, easy to develop. The Banker Road is another area that's possibly in the pipeline, along with a segment of off of Ruger Street. So they'll be in locations that people will be able to spot them, but the technology of solar continues to grow and advance as well. So I would imagine over the next 5 to 10 years that the solar panels are going to look very different as well.
And for a number of communities, especially in the Adirondacks right now, that's part of the debate about the number of farms, the size of the farms, but also the view. And for them, that's much more of an issue, I guess, maybe than it is for the town, that they're debating that about whether they should really try to place them where they're not front and center with the Adirondack view in the background.
We've struck a really good balance, and I know that other communities around the state have tapped us on the shoulder and asked us to share our local solar law with them, and they've made some modifications. But the community benefit portion of our local law was a first in the state, we believe.
A number of communities are struggling with this right now. You mentioned back in 2018 you made changes to the law, so you've been thinking about this for a number of years.
We have, because we knew that solar was just growing, in its momentum moving forward.
What are many of the things that are covered by the law that you passed back in 2018?
Location is probably one of the leading factors, and then size and scope are the two other elements to it.
So you get money for projects, you don't get direct power from any of the solar farms?
Correct. We do not have a direct linkage with the companies that are bringing it in.
When you talk about site placement under the law, do you look at the land to see if it's valuable farmland and raise the question of whether this should be used as a solar farm?
There are elements to that we want to make sure that we're protecting the land for its best value, for the duration.
4 on the board for now. Do you have more on the drawing board, or do you have interest from solar developers?
Yeah, there are individuals that have certainly reached out to us, but we're about 4 total, either under construction or under review. I would anticipate that as we continue to move forward throughout the year, that more developers will reach out to us. In fact, Tom, we are seeing such a huge increase in development and interest in Plattsburgh overall. Just to put it in perspective, this isn't solar. Last year, we did about 200,000 square feet of new build. Okay, and the first quarter alone, we've approved over 326,000 square feet of new build in the town of Plattsburgh. So people continue to look at Plattsburgh as a place to invest in the wide spectrum of things, whether it be solar, manufacturing, reinvesting as a hometown business. So Plattsburgh is the place to be.
Governor Kathy Hochul was here in town a couple of weeks ago, touting how the state is going green and investing big in EVs, and including the goal of converting all transit and school buses in New York to all electric or hydrogen by 2035, which, as we heard when the governor stopped by, could mean really big things for Nova Bus and the new generation of electric buses that they're ready to produce.
I don't know if people could have envisioned this decades ago, that this really would be the epicenter, not just for our state, but truly for the nation. This is the future unfolding. The hybrid buses transitioning to all electric, and you're making it here. We're changing the future of our state and ensuring a greener environment for our children's children because of what's going on here in Plattsburgh. So wear that with a badge of honor.
I can confidently say that the green economy and technology is not a fad. We are living it and standing in its presence right now. It is a pillar of our economy's sustainability and opportunities for growth while improving the environment for the next generation.
Her budget is going to support future development that's going to bring this product not only down to the MTA in New York City, but again, provide contract opportunities all around North America.
The governor talked about the potential. You talked about the potential. What could it mean for Nova Bus?
I think, the way that we see it here locally is security within, jobs, but I think there's also a growth factor. They continue to lead in so many different ways. I think we would all like to see, future expansion. The electrification models within the transportation industry are not shrinking. They're certainly growing.
The governor outlined the recently passed $220 billion budget deal. What's in it that's good for the North Country and good for Plattsburgh?
There's tons of stuff. There's investment in the green economy and transportation. But two things that I'm very, very happy to see is the investments in housing. We've been dogged about talking about the need for more investments in housing. Northwoods is just a great example. Atlas Heights in the town of Plattsburgh, two projects that have been formed in the last couple of years. But also the investment in childcare, which we know which is also a workforce issue.
And you mentioned Northwoods. Is that ready to open?
So fun fact is they've already opened their slots for the first 40 apartments. People have not moved in yet, but they have a lottery system. So we strongly encourage people just to simply Google Northwoods Plattsburgh. You can come across the housing application, and then there'll be another 40 units that will open because it's a 5-building, $24 million project, 80 units total. And I'm very hopeful that that's a project that we'll be able to expand in the near future through some of the investments that the state's making in housing.
And this is part of your town center concept, where you're putting the housing close to shopping, close to jobs, close to healthcare.
Absolutely.
Making it your community center.
Yeah, and it makes for, again, a more sustainable community because people can walk to these locations rather than jumping in a car. It may seem like a small thing, but the carbon footprint shrinks smaller and smaller and smaller whenever you have a more walkable or multimodal community.
And you touched on this. Some businesses did close during the pandemic. There was a slowdown, but since then, within the last year or so, you've seen explosive growth in Plattsburgh.
We have, and now that the Canadian border is wide open, we've been having a lot of interest from our international friends, both north of the border and elsewhere, that are looking to get back into the Plattsburgh market.
A lot of people, I think, thought that it might be as we get into the summer season that we would see it, especially at the hotels and such, but we're already feeling the impact of it reopening after 2 years.
There was such a pent-up demand that people started to take advantage of that opportunity almost immediately, and I would say that we're going to have a very strong summer because of it.
The former county airport is now an industrial park, and there is a major deal, a new tenant locating there?
There is. The one thing that I would provide some additional context, though, is that the former county airport isn't an industrial park. It's actually been identified through a separate smart growth plan as a multi-use property. But we are definitely going to see some additional elements of industrial. And there is a large project that's moving forward and a couple other ones that are moving forward out there as well.
And you talk about the major new tenant, anything you can fill in as far as the number of jobs or who it is?
Yep, so in large part what I will say right now is that it's going to be primarily a distribution center, but it certainly will provide more jobs for the region. And I think that it will continue to acknowledge that there's a strong interest in Plattsburgh, and that you're going to see other development both in the manufacturing, industrial, but also what we're hoping is that will inspire some mixed-use development, like small commercial, as well as some residential out there.
Oh, residential as well.
That's what we're hoping for, is because we have a smart growth plan that's been able to identify that that is a beautiful location with beautiful, view sheds of the mountains. And we've talked with some developers before that would love to see some housing development down there. Again, it gets directly connected to the topic of we know that we need more housing, be it workforce housing or across the spectrum, even to some of the higher levels of housing.
One of the big projects on the drawing board is the new Veterans Memorial planned for the shore of Lake Champlain across from Crab Island, the Battlefield Memorial Gateway, a park and memorial and boat launch to get visitors out to Crab Island to visit the memorials there. And how many years is this now from becoming a reality, and when are you hoping to break ground on
Sure.
that?
So it's been about a decade or so of work that we've been having lots of conversations because it's been incubated in various stages. Just at the end of last year, we were able to capture $900,000 in state funding for that project. The project has always been real, but we've been methodical in our planning and going through the process to make sure that it really meets the standard of what we're trying to do in honoring our veterans and the American story. So you're going to see some additional work occur this year and into next year and the year after that. Our goal is to have a space that can become activated by 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of our nation. But we also fully acknowledge that this is going to be an ongoing project because it's a multi-generational space that we want it to be dynamic enough that it brings people back year after year after year.
And what is the hope that it'll do for the town of Plattsburgh?
A couple different things. One is we want folks here locally to be able to better understand the importance of us being right in the heart of the American story, from the Battle of Valcour to our connection with the Battle of Plattsburgh, which I think sometimes washes out our connection to the American Revolution with the Battle of Valcour, to the men and women that have served all around this region up until the most recent engagement. So we want to continue to tell the American story that way. Yeah, we're really excited.